This is the fuel level gauge we use on our 100-gallon diesel tanks. It threads into the top of the tank, and everything you see here below the cap sits inside: the rod, the pivot, and the float. As the fuel level rises or drops, the float moves up and down. That movement rotates a small internal shaft, and a magnet at the top sends that position to the indicator. Let me show you how it works. I'll take out these two screws and open the gauge. You'll notice there's no direct mechanical connection between the float assembly and the display. The tank stays sealed and no fuel gets into the gauge itself. That's why these are usually trouble-free. If you're seeing a wrong reading, it usually comes down to one of two things. The float is stuck inside the tank, so it isn't rising or lowering with the fuel. The magnet has moved out of the capture range during transport or servicing, so the display isn't picking up the float position. There isn't much else that can fail unless you have a wiring issue between the gauge and the generator controller. If the reading on the gauge matches what the controller shows, then the electronics are fine and the problem is almost always mechanical: a stuck float or a magnet that needs to re-engage. Since most people won't remove the entire sender from the tank, here's what you can do. Remove the top display, just like I'm doing here. Reinstall it and see if the magnet snaps back into position. Sometimes it only realigns when the fuel level changes. If the float is stuck, you may need to wait for the tank to empty and refill, or gently lift the float through the fill opening so it can move freely and recapture the gauge. Under normal conditions, the float moves easily, as you can see here. It only sticks if it's damaged or bent.